My guest today is BAFTA winning producer Annalise Davis, and her impressive resume contains multiple award winning films, her latest feature, No Way Up, with Altitude Films. Now, Annalise's first feature film as a producer, Up There, won a BAFTA award for Best Film and Best Director, and she went on to co-produce The Railway Man, starring Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman, and served as the UK producer on Tigers, directed by Academy Award-winning Danis Tanovic. Now, her films have screened in official competition in festivals around the world, including Cannes and Venice, Santa Barbara, and many others. Now, Annalise also produced Fireworks in 2023, directed by double Academy Award winner Paul Franklin, which used groundbreaking virtual production techniques to open up a whole new way of making films. Now, through her ongoing relationship with virtual production studios, she aims to bring world-class production values to every film she makes. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome film producer Annalise Davis and her film No Way Up to the show. Welcome, Annalise.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction. I'm going
Well,
to
you're very,
carry
very
that around
welcome.
with me.
Well, you have a very impressive resume. How in the world did you get into producing films?
Oh, that's a good question. I loved films when I was a kid, but I don't have any access to filmmakers. I'm not from a family that knows anything about films. I didn't even know that film producing was a job until I was about 25. So I just did an undergraduate degree of philosophy and film and still loved film. And I got a place at the National Film and Television School as a master's in producing. And that's actually how I got into it. I'd done a bit of film work before that, but that was really what started my education in terms of like what even a producer is, because I really didn't know until I went. I pretended to know, but I didn't.
Well, for everyone watching and listening, what does a producer actually do? And what's the most difficult part of being a film producer?
The most difficult part, that's easy, is getting films made. It's really difficult. Um, a producer sort of does a bit of everything. They're on the film from start to finish. You in some way originate projects. Often a writer will bring you a project, or you might read a book that you like, and then you work through the development of the film, of the script, and then sometimes with a director, or sometimes you find a director through that process. And then with the director, you effectively are the keeper of the story, and you bring that film to life through the financing, through the creative, through getting the right people, through figuring out the best way to make the production work, like where you're shooting and how you're shooting, and then through the shoot itself, keeping it on the road, and then into post-production, the edit, sound, music, and VFX, and then I guess this bit as well when it's out there in the world and seeing how people like it.
Well,
So it's everything, really.
it sounds like you're carrying the whole load when it comes to making a film. How how big of an advantage is it winning an award like a BAFTA? Does it make the career easier?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, I think probably what makes it easier is the more you do it and the more experience you have. It helps to have awards because it shows that, well, hopefully it shows that you have some kind of quality control and some kind of taste. And I guess it's good for your confidence as well. It feels nice. But mainly, I think the point about what I love about making films is making films. And it's nice if you get in festivals or do well at awards. But really, for me, it's about the making of the films. That's the best thing.
Well, how did you get involved with No Way Up?
So I'd known Andy Mason. Andy Mason wrote the film and also is the other producer on the film. And I'd known him years. I met him on a sort of field trip to Colombia many years ago in 2014, and we'd stayed in touch. And he'd written the script and he was looking for a producer. And so I read it and I was like, oh yeah, no, I like it. I like female-led films. I love kind of action films, and I always saw it as a female empowerment film. I know there are sharks in it, and it's an action thriller, but for me, it's about a female. It's about a woman who begins the film kind of not believing in herself, and through the film she realizes her own strength and discovers her own self-belief and becomes a leader and becomes a woman, really. And that for me is what really attracted me to the script and the film. So Andy brought me on board, and Claudio, the director, who's a brilliant director, was also on board, and we just worked together like that. And Andy made the film through his company, Altitude Entertainment.
Yeah, Andy also has a very long resume, and I noticed that he's also known for the film 47 Meters Down. Uh,
Mm.
were there any elements from that film that ended up in No Way Up?
I think we used the same tank. Um, so So yeah, we both of us used all our underwater elements. There's a tank in Essex, which for your listeners, viewers who don't know, it's a town. Well, it's a town outside of London, basically, and it's a pretty small tank but deep. And when you're working on an independent film budget, you can't use studios like Pinewood. So we went to this great tank in Essex, actually, that worked perfectly for us because it was deep and warm for the actors. And yeah, I think that's similar to 47 Meters Down. I think we share that.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this film a lot. And one of the things that I noticed right off the bat was this film is about 90 minutes long, which for me was a breath of fresh air because so many movies today are well over the 2 hour, 3 hour mark. And to see a film that is about 90 minutes long, it's fast paced. Because what I love about the part of the storyline is because the plane crashes and there are survivors, they're put into a situation where, well, they only have a certain amount of time. And that's what I loved about this because audiences today, I think they're tired of films dragging along, but this one has all the elements of a great action thriller. It's suspenseful. There are surprises in it, and you get to ride along with the characters' emotions in this film. So, how big a challenge was it producing an
Uh,
underwater film?
well, yeah, thank you for saying that. All that. That's obviously a testament to the script and the direction. Certainly, in developing the script, we knew that every 10 pages, somebody had to either die or have their leg bitten off or something. So I'm glad you noticed that it keeps ticking away. And yeah, it was really important that we kept the action going. But as you said, all of the characters have an arc and have a journey, and we want them to feel like real people who you can feel emotionally connected to. So I'm really glad you said all of those things. Shooting underwater, well, obviously what we had to do was minimize shooting underwater because it's really slow and painful and expensive. So in actual fact, for the crash itself, we shot that dry at another kind of studio space just outside of London. And then for the underwater bit, we took a real plane. We had a brilliant production designer, Matt Button, and we put it on a rig, a specially designed rig that was so complicated. We had a master rigger have to sign it off and a structural engineer. But the plane was put on the rig, and we had to be able to sink it at different angles and different depths, so we could show the plane moving down the cliff, the underwater cliff, with actors in it and moving. So yeah, that was quite a big deal and quite complicated. And in prep, me and the director Claudio and the DP and well, all the key people did spend quite a lot of time wondering how we were going to do it. But I think with films, what's brilliant about film is you get the right people together who have a can-do attitude and are flexible and pragmatic, and you can work through, which bits of the script you can lean into and which maybe you need to change and which elements you can make more of. And that's how we did it. And actually, one of the key decisions we made was the galley where they're trapped in. So there's a galley and then the plane itself. We actually took the galley off the plane and we shot that in a dry area. So the characters go through a curtain in the scenes and you really can't tell, but that galley was shot dry. So we had like 2 weeks of shooting underwater that was actually in the dry in a cut off galley and obviously that was quicker, easier, safer, cheaper. But when you're underwater, you need the dive team, and you need who are brilliant, and you need all the extra equipment. So it's more challenging, but it's fun. It's really fun.
I can't believe that that was a real plane because when I was watching the film, I was looking at elements of, okay, what is real? Is there any CGI? Was there any special effects? But the film is so seamless from outside the plane to the inside of the plane, and everything just looked authentic and real. And to hear you say that you used an actual plane, hey, I am so happy that you did that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it looked real to you. I mean, actually, one of the key things we wanted to do was kind of keep it feeling real. Obviously, the concept is a very high concept, and I don't think it could ever happen. But we wanted it to feel real. We wanted the characters' emotions to feel real. And when we could shoot practically and for real, we really did. So a lot of that plane crash is real in that we had a brilliant stunt crew from Malta who did all the pulling men and women on wire and throwing them over, and we had a great SFX team popping overhead lockers and putting smoke into things. So that was all done for real. And outside the plane windows we had projected clouds, and obviously when we popped open the wall, what you see outside is VFX, and so we had to use VFX at times. But even underwater, Sophie, the actress playing the lead character, Ava, she really is swimming down the plane when she's trying to escape. And we had a wire on her, and we kept pulling her back to show that the plane was falling down the crevasse. So she really is swimming and being pulled back. And obviously the wire we comped out after the fact. But she's doing all those stunts. All the actors did most of their stunts. They learned how to dive, and they were swimmers, and they loved it. They loved their dive experience on the film.
Wow. I mean, that is just scary to think about, that an actor would actually want to do those types of stunts. Because as an audience member, I'm watching the film, and when Ava is swimming downward as that plane is starting to move, as an audience member, I'm thinking, does she have enough air? Because that's one of the main points of them trying to get out of that plane and make it to the surface, was, do they have enough air? And the way that everything is filmed, the way the actors acted, you feel that fear and that uncertainty in this movie. This is why I like it so much, because to me, as an action film or a thriller, it's perfect in every way. And the way that you explained how you even had to use VFX, it's seamless. I mean, nothing looked fake. I mean, when those people come flying out of that airplane, it looked like they really flew out of that airplane.
Oh, that's really great to hear. I mean, that's having a great team, like a brilliant VFX team who were based out of Germany, and we had brilliant VFX houses based out of Vietnam and Australia. And I think if you have that great team, and Claudia is such a great director in terms of very collaborative and exacting, and everything we did, every day and every decision we made, we tried to just do the best possible with what we had with our resources. And as you said, Sophie as an actor, all our actors were absolutely brilliant. And she gives a brilliant performance, but also physically, she's incredibly fit, and she really was swimming, and she can do that swim. And we did time how long her character has to hold her breath, and it is possible when you time it for real. But actually what we did, once we put her through all of this swimming, and we put her through going up in height with the helicopter later, the other thing we did is we moved to virtual production for the final sequence when she comes out of the plane, and suddenly she's out of the very cramped plane, and she's in this expanse of ocean. I mean, this is a total spoiler, as she's swimming up. And virtual production, what it allowed us to do, I'm sure most of your viewers know what it is, but for those who don't, it's like a gigantic TV behind you. So rather than a green screen where the actors can't see what it is, we put the plane and the ocean on like a gigantic LED screen behind Sophie and put her on a wire. So when she leaves the plane, we cut from her actually being underwater to her pretend swimming, and the screen behind her is doing underwater using virtual production. So that bit was, I guess, completely faked. But the virtual production team did such a great job of, and the VFX team did such a great job of matching the underwater of the virtual production with the real underwater that I don't think you can tell at all. That's all in a studio in London.
Wow. So was the whole film filmed in England?
Yeah, we did. We were going to shoot in Malta for a while, but then we were I mean, actually, for a lot of reasons, a lot of them around sustainability. I didn't like the idea of building the plane in England. We had to build it in England and then ship it to Malta. That just felt crazy to me for, sustainability and carbon impact. So in the end, where we built the plane is where we shot it, and we just moved the plane we built to Essex, which is, an hour's drive. So yeah, it was all in and around London. And the airport that we faked for LAX was actually Stansted and Southend Airport, which are just outside London. So it was all very London based, basically.
I mean, the storyline is fantastic. The filming, you just can't beat it. And a lot of kudos and praise to your team, because like you said, everything that was done so seamlessly that when I watched the film, I wondered, is the plane real? The plane is real. The water's real. The galley, the part of that plane. And so like in that one scene, well, let me ask you something, because this is where you start to wonder what's real and what has to be created. How did you create the sharks?
Oh, yeah. So the sharks are actually, some people do think the sharks are real. They're not. We didn't really put sharks in with the actors. That would have been a bit too much. That would have been a bit method. So the sharks are all fake. They're all CG. They're brilliantly done. They're actually VFX house in Australia called Stage 23. They're kind of a boutique VFX house, and they did a really great job. I mean, both our VFX houses did a great job, but they did the sharks. So yeah, you look at the sharks and think, oh, they did a good job. And I think, that's also testament to the DP and Claudia, the director, and actually Andy, the composer, because we were quite careful in how we revealed the sharks. So the first time you see them, it's sort of a flash, and then you see it and then cut away. And so we were quite careful to build on the sharks, so you don't get too much too soon. So when you first see them, it's a real shock, and then you slowly get more and more. And so until, by the time the character gets his leg bitten off and you get a good old chomp, that's sort of one of the first times you see the shark properly. And then obviously at the end with Ava, the shot that's in the trailer where she's got a standoff like in Alien, that's a really great moment where you see the shark properly. But it's all fake. It's all VFX.
You brought in the best people in every aspect of this film, because a lot of times when you see movies with sharks in them, sometimes you can, you're like, that shark's fake. But in this film, I couldn't tell. So they looked real, they acted real, even when, it's shark with an actor. It's seamless. And I love that. The other thing that I loved about No Way Up, for me, and ladies and gentlemen, I don't look at this film as being it's not a shark movie. It is a plane crash survival movie. There just happens to be, a couple, a few swimming villains in this movie, but it's not like Jaws. It's not like, 47 meters down or The Meg. It's nothing like that. This is about, survivors in a plane crash caught into an air pocket. And I actually love the concept of this whole film, because it forces the film to move along a very quick timeline, because it is about survival.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And actually, for me, it's the same. It is a survival thriller. And the sharks are sort of an obstacle along the way. And Jaws is a brilliant film, but structurally this film is very different because the sort of antagonist, if you like, is the plane crashing, and also Ava's own, well, it's her own journey towards self-belief. And yeah, the sharks come along on the way, but it's very much. And when I was a kid, I loved films like Towering Inferno, actually, those big 70s disaster films. And it takes, and Claudio and Andy Roger, the DP, took a lot of inspiration from those sort of 70s, 80s films. And so the look and the way they shot it was very cinematic. And although we shot digitally, it sort of, the lenses they used and the way they shot, we wanted to feel like it was actually shot on film, and it had that classic Hollywood style. And Claudio, the director, loves Spielberg. I mean, who doesn't? Spielberg's great. So yeah, Jaws is still an inspiration. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's a survival film first and foremost. And you're right. The concept. What's great about the concept is I know that it takes Andy, the writer's, three biggest fears, and it plays into everybody's three biggest fears, which is plane crash, drowning, and sharks. So it's all there. It's all in one. We didn't want to do one. We didn't want to do two. We want to give you three, so you get bang for your bucks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I am so glad that you brought up Towering Inferno. That was the first R-rated movie I saw when I was a kid.
Wow.
And what is so magical about Towering Inferno is back in the day, you had at least, 10, 12 big stars in one film. And I would really love to see a true remake of that film. Because now we have buildings that, they're almost a mile high. And I think now, and I know that The Rock did a film a few years ago about a building catching on fire, but it didn't have the magic that the Towering Inferno has, because every character, I mean, you were worried about the elevators, you were worried about the water, the sprinkler systems. There was just so much in that film. I would love to see an amazing remake. Maybe that's one of the films you should be doing.
Maybe that's the sequel to No Way Up. It's No Way Out, and spoiler, the people who survive on No Way Up can be there with some new people.
Yeah, call it No Way Down.
No Way Down, No Way Out. Yeah, no, I love that idea. I'll talk to Claudia and Andy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it still amazes me the star power that one film had. But with No Way Up, you've got some really good star power here, because you had Colm Meaney and you had Phyllis Logan, which many people know as Mrs. Hughes from Downton Abbey and other films. How did you cast this film?
Well, I can't remember what order we cast it, actually. Certainly Colm and Phyllis were first. What I love about this film, and God, this is just totally spoiling it, but what I really love about the script and the film is that Colm is there, and he's the bodyguard, and he's the guy I think he's going to be the one to watch, and he's like the biggest star as well. And obviously we find out that doesn't happen. So and I love that, because it just pulls the rug out from under you. So yeah, I think actually we cast Phyllis first, and it's such a great role, because as an older woman, normally older women in films are sort of relegated to being, I don't know, a bit pathetic or a bit sort of, they're cliches in some way. But I love Phyllis's character because she's a nurse. She's got skill in her. She fixes Kyle's arm, and and obviously she makes that massive decision at the end with her granddaughter. And she's just a brilliant woman in this very tense environment. And she's a leader, and she's calm and gracious and strong in this environment. And I think to see a woman and to see an older woman inhabit that role on screen in this kind of genre where you expect it to be some man with muscles, I just think it's great. And I love Phyllis's performance. She gives it so much gravitas, and she means everything. And in that final scene where you see her, your heart breaks for her. And Phyllis herself is the most wonderful woman. And she obviously spent a lot of time with a much younger cast, because most of the rest of the cast are in their 20s. So obviously less experienced than she is. And she, I mean, what a brilliant woman to sort of lead the cast through the shoot. And they're trapped in that galley together. And she's just a brilliant actor and a brilliant human being. And I know that the cast really bonded, and they really, we still see each other. We had our preview screening in London, and they all came and we had dinner, and they really bonded, being stuck in that very claustrophobic environment all together. And Claudio is a wonderful director with cast, and he leads them so beautifully and collaborates with them. So we had a really happy time, and I think their performances, I love all their performances, what they bring to it. So we had a great time both on and off screen making the film.
Yeah, I really loved Calm's part as the bodyguard, because I was wanting to see him more in the film, because he had a way, he had knowledge, because being a bodyguard, he always had an eye. He even had it's almost like he had eyes in the back of his head, and he could read situations. He had knowledge of survival. And I'm like, oh, and because of that particular scene, I'm like, oh, just wish he just hung around a little bit longer. But that leads into Ava, and then Phyllis's part, where the women take that very strong lead role, that leadership over this situation. Because it's funny, because with the male flight attendant, and then the two of Ava's friends, there is this there's this fear and a little bit of weakness on their part, So it's almost like they're leaning. Part of them are leaning on Phyllis's motherly nursing instincts, and at the same time, Ava's the one that's kind of realizing, we got to get out of here. And even when y'all put Ava in the cargo hold, that was a tense situation.
Do it's so funny, that luggage hold. It's God, that was a sequence that we sort of ran out of money. And if you saw what the art department put together with nothing, it was just like basically some bits of string and some old suitcases. But God, brilliant. It's so good. And you really do believe that she's going to die. And that was Sophie swimming with no light. She wasn't able, that light was put in afterwards with no goggles. And so really, really difficult for her. She's amazing. She's so strong and so brave in terms of how she did everything. So yeah, that was, but yeah, I mean, structurally the film, it's great that people enjoy the film and it's action and thrills, but actually structurally the film is a pretty classic structure of Ava starts off one way in the first act, and she's relying on her bodyguard, and at the end of the first act, oops, there's a crash, and then he goes, and she has to find a way through. And at first what she wants to do is sort of follow her bodyguard and sort of cling to what he said. She carries on clinging to what he said even after he goes, and then actually at the halfway point, she has that moment at the mirror, and she's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because she realizes they're sort of, the plane's gone down further and she cannot do what Brandon told her to do. And actually it's that from that halfway point onwards, she starts to go, we've got to start figuring this out for ourselves. And then you get to the end of the second act into the final act, and that's where she starts saying, we're going to have to get out on our own. And that's her arc, and it's all in there. It's all Ava and her arc, and it's very, very classic structure. And she's the person who takes you through. And yet you have all these other characters, and they have lots of other things going on. And the men are useful in some ways. And Danilo, the flight attendant, does know a lot. He knows where the hold is, and the oxygen. And but yeah, you're right. It is the women who, Phyllis and Ava in particular, and then Grace, the child, has her own ideas about sharks and bubbles, and she's got her own steel. So yeah, for me, it was nice to take a sort of classic male genre, in a way. Action thrillers and survival thrillers are classically given to men saving women. And so for me, it's nice that the women get agency and they save the men, really. And they're the ones who take control.
You really brought that together, because after the bodyguard was killed, Um, then each of the women, and that includes Grace, the little girl, all had something very important to offer for their survival. And it's like the little girl coming up, well, not with the idea, she learned that sharks can be scared away by bubbles. Probably something that she learned in school or learned by watching a documentary, or maybe she saw it on an Instagram reel or something. I thought every one of those elements worked so beautifully. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I love the fact that there is this female driven, um, they're heroes when it comes to this film, and they take the leadership, and even the strength of the little girl was just
Yeah.
amazing. Again, this film it's fun to watch. It's great to watch. You get to ride along with every emotion and fear with this film. I know that the film has debuted at the theaters. How long is the theater run before it ends up in streaming?
So it actually was released day and date on the 16th of February. So I think it's still in theatres now in the US, but it is on platforms in the US as well. So it can be streamed, or you can still go and see it. I would recommend going to see it on the big screen because it's a big screen film and the music is amazing and the soundtrack. So, but yeah, it can also be streamed too.
Well,
And yeah, you're
now,
right. Grace, who plays the little girl, is a brilliant actor, and yeah, she brings so much to that role as well.
yeah, it's just a stellar cast. Now, I understand that you produced the short film Fireworks. Uh, can you? And I know you had alluded to it earlier, but can you explain to all of us what is virtual production technology, and how does that compare with the fear of AI coming?
Oh, AI. So virtual production technology is it's what you do is you bring the content of the world that you want to shoot, rather than doing it in post-production and VFX. You build it and you create it in a virtual production engine, normally Unreal, but there are other ways of creating it, and you put it on a screen behind the actors whilst you're shooting film. So what that means is, in pre-production with the director, designer, and DP, you can design those assets, put them on the screen. Everybody sees what's happening. It's all shot in camera on the day, and the cast can see it too. And it's more than in the old days you'd call something like that back projection, but it's more than just a painting, let's say, because when the camera moves, the screen moves too. So you get parallax and you get everything moves like you're really there. So it takes back projection, or even a translight. It takes what would otherwise been something like a painting in old Hollywood days, and it takes it up a notch because you're really there, because the back moves. So it's really amazing technology, and it's great for sort of adding skill, and also it's often used for sci-fi because you can create whatever world you want, so it can be unrealistic. In Fireworks, we used it. It was told in just about real time. It was a high-end short film, and we had an MI6 ops room, and the agents are considering doing a drone strike on a suspected terrorist in a Tripoli marketplace, and we shot that in a real set. And as they're talking about it, and on the screen you can see the blobs and the drones and the people in the Tripoli marketplace, we broke down a wall and had the Tripoli marketplace on a virtual wall with the Tripoli people there. So although both worlds were available to the audience, neither world could see each other. So it was a sort of very pushed in terms of like artistically. It was like a metaphor. It wasn't real, but for the, when you're watching it, it's real anyway. And it was brilliant. What I always try to do with any film is, if you're going to use technology or anything, whether it's VFX or practical or Water, what you really want to do is always serve the story and serve the characters. So if it's right for the story and for the characters, then it's great. And you're not doing it for the sake of it, you're doing it for all the right reasons. So I think virtual production is a really amazing tool. I've worked with Dimension Studios on Fireworks and No Way Up, and continuing the collaboration, because I think they're great to work with. And virtual production, just like most new technology, just gets better and better every month. Really, it's growing that quickly, and it's really worth engaging in. For AI, what was the AI question?
Well, well, let me just ask you this about AI. I mean, what is your opinion of it? And is the industry-wide fear justified?
Well, I definitely feel it's going to take over the world in some way. So probably yes. I like to think that that jobs that are, working with story and working with film, there'll always be room for humans. Yeah, look, I think new technology has to be embraced, doesn't it? And has to be engaged with, and there's no point being totally hostile to it. But at the same time, it feels like there are a lot of complicated legal and philosophical issues around AI that definitely have to be looked into. And I'm sure there'll be some rockiness and Wild West vibe before they're sort of properly thought through and worked out, I guess like the early days of the internet.
Yeah, rightly so. Now, you have many new films in the works. Can you share a few of those with us?
Yeah, I've got a really exciting film called 2040, which is a climate change thriller, which is basically Booksmart meets Don't Look Up. And it's set in 2040, and two best friends have 24 hours to find a fake passport. So it's in a climate change world, but the idea is it's thrilling and fun, and we have a 24-hour clock ticking down. And again, we can use virtual production to create the exteriors of this world, which is very like our own. It's not super sci-fi. It's like our own, just a bit different. Like water's rationed, meat is rationed, and it's a bit drier, and trees are a bit more precious. But basically, it's a film that's thrilling and exciting, but also trying to say something pretty important about the world and climate change and how it's going to affect us all, and it is affecting us all, everyone, how we really need to start doing more about it. And then I've also got a conspiracy thriller, female-led, called Burn It Down, which is 6 people trapped on a roof, which again we're going to use for virtual production, and that's Paul Franklin, the double Oscar winner for VFX. Then I've a lovely romantic comedy with the director Michael Hoffman, which we're shooting in Sardinia. So lots of really exciting films, and mainly female-led. But my main idea is to, I always want to tell entertaining stories that are hopefully that have some kind of serious message smuggled in, but they should be entertaining and thrilling and funny and audience friendly, in the way that No Way Up is. There's stuff that we've said about No Way Up to do with, as you said, female empowerment and the self-belief of the characters growing into their own self-belief, but mainly it's fun and action and thrilling, and that's what it should be.
Well, I can't wait for the rest of those films, and when they come out, you got to come back so we can talk about those films. And as a producer, how do you juggle multiple projects at the same time?
Well, you know what? It takes so long to make a film, and then making of the film itself is intense. So you sort of focus on that project, and then it's hard. But basically, you focus on the making of the film, but then you're on the back burner. You've got the other films, so it's all it works as long as you love what you do.
Yeah, it's just timed out in a way to where you're not really juggling all 4 at once. You're working on one. Everything's based on a timeline, and I've talked to people that have multiple films that are basically going to be debuting anywhere from this year upwards to 2026. So, that's, wow. Yeah. So, filmmaking is just an incredible art. And Annalise, you have proved that with this film, the multiple ways of creating the story visually is just an art form, from being realistic to using VFX, virtual production. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a film to watch. You're going to love it just like I am. So if it's at a theater near you, you need to go see No Way Up. Would be available on streaming, but No Way Up, it is a thrilling, emotional roller coaster ride of a film. with high concept combinations of disaster movie, survival thriller, with characters from very different backgrounds. They're just thrown together when the plane they're traveling crashes into the Pacific Ocean, and then the stricken airliner, it just comes to a rest perilously close to the edge of a bottomless ravine, with the surviving passengers and crew trapped in an air pocket. And with their air supply rapidly running out, well, a nightmare fight for survival ensues as dangers from all sides close in on them. And I want to thank you, Annalise, for sharing your film No Way Up and giving us the insights of how it was made with us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your kind words, and I've loved your questions. They're really insightful. So thank you.
Oh, you're very well. Thank you so much. And please, you've got to come back when 2040 and the rest of your films come out, because I want to see them and I want to talk about them.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the replays of our interviews with the top film directors, producers like Annalise Davis, as well as screenwriters, actors, and more on our website at bondoncinema.com. We're also available on YouTube and a dozen audio platforms as well. I want to thank you for watching and listening. And as for me, I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.